It is night on the savannah. 8 spotted hyenas run in a fan behind an adult wildebeest, forcing it to turn again and again until its legs begin to fail. There are no roars. There is a long, calculated chase in which the group takes turns so as not to tire. When the wildebeest stops, it is already surrounded. Minutes later, the whole clan eats what it has just killed. And then the lions arrive. 4 lionesses and an enormous male appear out of the dark, drawn by the noise. They hunted nothing tonight. They followed no trail. They simply listened. The hyenas retreat screaming, and in under a minute, the animal they killed becomes another's dinner. You have just seen the most common scene on the African savannah, and also the one you have been told the least, because it goes exactly the opposite way from what you learned. This is the most filmed biome on the planet. You have seen the lion, the hyena, the cheetah 1,000 times, and yet almost everything you think you know about who rules here is inverted. The animal we call a scavenger is one of the best hunters in Africa. The animal we call king steals more food than it catches on its own. The fastest animal in the world loses most of its prey, and the fattest, clumsiest herbivore kills more people than all the big cats combined. This is the savannah that really exists, not the one from the documentaries. And I will tell you now what waits at the end of the road, because I want you to get there. On this plain lives a hunter that wins 8 out of every 10 chases it begins. No great predator in Africa comes close, not the lion, not the leopard, not the cheetah, and most people could not even name it. At the end of this video you will meet it, and you will understand why it is the most efficient animal on the whole continent. First, 3 things you will find on the way. You will see a cat that jumps 3 meters straight up to pluck a bird out of the air. You will see the largest bird of prey in Africa hunting animals that weigh more than it does. And you will see why the true king of the savannah is not the lion and never was. Give us a like right now and subscribe to Wild Dominion to keep discovering the most brutal nature in the world, and tell us in the comments which country you are watching from today. Now let us begin with the most misunderstood animal in Africa, the spotted hyena. And let us begin with the most important thing, because it is what almost no one knows. The spotted hyena is not a scavenger. It is a hunter. The field studies that followed whole clans for years in the Serengeti and in the Ngorongoro crater found the same thing over and over. Most of what a spotted hyena eats, it killed itself. Depending on the region and the season, the proportion of its own hunting runs from half to more than 90% of its diet. It is one of the most active predators on the continent, and there is something even more uncomfortable for the image we have of it. When a lion and a hyena face off over a carcass, in most cases the one that arrived later is the lion. The researchers who measured this in the Ngorongoro found that the lions got an enormous part of their food by stealing it from the hyena clans, and not the other way around. The animal we call a scavenger works, and the animal we call king takes its plate. And how does it hunt? With no stealth and no ambush. The spotted hyena is a distance runner. It does not try to surprise anyone. It picks an animal, begins to chase it, and does not stop. It can hold a fast trot for several kilometers, and its strategy is to drive the prey to the point where its legs stop responding. It is a hunt of endurance, not of speed. Its body is built for that. The forequarters are much taller and more muscular than the hindquarters, which gives it that characteristic sloping profile and a hugely powerful front stride. Its heart, in proportion, is enormous compared with a lion's. And then there is the jaw, which is not built to bite. It is built to break. The molars at the back of the mouth are short, wide, and massive, and they work like a hammer against an anvil. It can crack the femur of a giraffe, and it does not do it for fun. It does it because its digestive system can dissolve bone and pull the nutrients from inside, something almost no other carnivore can use. Where a lion leaves a clean skeleton and walks away, the hyena still has a whole meal ahead of it. But the strangest part of this animal is not how it hunts, it is how it lives. Spotted hyena clans are absolute matriarchies. They are led by a female, and every female in the group ranks above any adult male. A male, even a big and strong one, eats after all the females and all the cubs. When he reaches adulthood, he must leave the clan he was born into and try to enter another, and there he starts from the lowest rung. The females are also larger than the males. uncommon among carnivores, and their hormone levels are so particular that their external anatomy is almost indistinguishable from a male's. For centuries that fed all kinds of stories about this animal, and its cubs are born in a way unlike any other carnivore. Hyena cubs come into the world with their eyes open and their teeth already through. From the first minutes of life, they fight each other to establish who is in charge, and in same-sex litters that fight can end with the death of one of the siblings. They are born already competing. Picture the scene on the plain just before dawn. A herd of wildebeest grazes in the half-light. 4 hyenas appear, walking without hurry, and the wildebeest lift their heads but do not run. They know a slow trot is not an attack. The hyenas come closer. One of the wildebeest, a little slower than the rest, drifts 2 meters apart, only 2, and in that instant the trot becomes a chase, and it will not stop for the next 3 kilometers. And now the animal that eats what she hunts, the lion. Let it be clear, the lion is a formidable predator, the second largest cat on the planet, and an adult male can top 200 kilos. Nothing that follows takes that away. But the portrait painted of it is out of order, and it is worth setting straight. First point, lions are not great individual hunters. The success rate of a lion hunt runs around 1 in 4 or 5 attempts, well below other African carnivores. They do not run fast for long, they tire quickly, and they depend entirely on getting close enough before they break into a run. Second point, the hunting is done mostly by the females. Lionesses are lighter, faster, and work in coordination, taking different positions around the prey. Some push, others wait hidden in the direction the animal will flee. It is teamwork with divided roles, and in most prides, it is they who do it. And third point, the one that bothers people most, an important part of what a pride eats was not killed by anyone in that pride. Lions steal with extraordinary efficiency, and their size and numbers let them drive hyenas, cheetahs, and leopards off almost any prey. So if the females hunt and the group steals, what is the male for? And here is the answer almost no one tells, the one that explains the real lion. The male is not there to hunt. He is there to make war. Adult males group into coalitions, usually of 2 to 4 individuals, often brothers, and their job is to take control of a pride of females and defend it from other coalitions. That is their whole function, and it is a brutal job. They patrol an enormous territory, raw to market, and when another group of males appears, they fight. Those fights end in serious wounds and sometimes in death. The mane, which looks like a simple ornament, is part of that trade. It is darker and thicker in the healthiest, most testosterone-rich males. It works as a visible signal of status from a distance and offers some protection to the neck in combat. And when a new coalition conquers a pride, the harshest thing of all happens. The incoming males kill the small cubs of the previous males. It is not gratuitous cruelty. While a lioness nurses, she does not come back into heat. By eliminating the cubs that are not theirs, the new males get the females to breed again, this time with their own genes. And those males know their reign will be short because a coalition rarely controls a pride for more than a few years before being driven out by a younger one. The result is that the life of a male lion is short and violent, and that the pride, the structure we associate with power, is really a group of related females that stays while the males come and go. Picture the scene at dusk. 2 males with dark manes walk along a rise, one behind the other, and stop to roar. The sound crosses the plain and is heard several kilometers away. They are not calling anyone. They are warning. 3 kilometers off, in the tall grass, 3 young males hear that same roar and count how many they are. And now, so the wrong idea does not stick, we have to show the lion at the moment when no one argues with it. Because when a pride decides to go after a truly large prey, there is no other land predator in Africa able to do the same. An adult Cape buffalo weighs close to 800 kilos and has horns able to gut a cat. No African animal hunts it alone. Lions do, but only in a group, and only if everything goes well. The lionesses approach from several angles at once. They pick an individual and separate it from the rest of the herd, which is the truly hard part, because a buffalo surrounded by other buffalo is untouchable. Once isolated, some hold it by the hindquarters to slow it, while another throws its weight over it from the front. It can take whole minutes, and sometimes it goes wrong. There are lions that die gored in the attempt. On those occasions, the male does step in, and there his size stops being decorative. 200 kilos on the back of an already exhausted animal decide the outcome. And there is one more thing the lion does better than any other carnivore on the continent: sound. Its roar can be heard several kilometers away, and it is not just volume. The lion's vocal cords have a flat, square shape, different from almost all mammals, and that geometry lets it produce an extremely deep sound with very little lung effort. It is an animal designed to be heard from far away, and on a plain where territory is defended without seeing the rival, that voice is a weapon as real as the fangs. And while the lion fights for territory and the hyena runs kilometers, there is a third big cat that solved the problem in a completely different way. It does not compete. It hides. The leopard is the smallest of the African big cats, and also the most successful of them all if we measure by one single thing: the ability to keep what it kills. That is its real problem, and it is worth understanding. On the savannah, killing is not the hard part. The hard part is holding on to the food. A cheetah that brings down a gazelle can lose it in minutes. A lone hyena can be driven off by a clan. Even a lion loses prey to large groups. Everyone steals from everyone. The leopard found the only possible way out, carrying the food to a place no one else can climb to. And here is what almost no one tells about this animal. The leopard chooses the tree before it chooses the prey. It does not hunt just anywhere. It hunts near specific acacias, the ones with a fork high enough and wide enough to hold a body. The researchers who follow collared leopards have watched the same thing for years. Their hunting routes pass again and again by the same trees, and it is no coincidence. The animal has memorized where its pantries are before there is anything to store in them, and it comes back to those trees for years. A single leopard can use the same fork season after season, and in some areas the guides identify an individual simply by knowing which tree it uses. It is planning that goes far beyond strength. It is an animal that hunts with a map in its head. Up in that fork, the food is out of reach of the hyenas and the lions, and the leopard can return to it for days. And its second weapon is invisibility. The leopard is the big cat with the widest distribution in the world, and it lives in places no one looks for it. Near fields, near roads, even on the edges of large African cities, where it feeds on dogs, rodents, and birds, without most people knowing it is there. It is an animal that learned to exist in the same space as us, staying completely out of sight. Picture the scene in a riverside forest. An impala drinks at the water's edge. On a low branch 4 meters up is a long shape the same color as the bark that has stayed still for more than an hour. The impala raises its head, looks around, and sees nothing because there is nothing to see. When it lowers its head again, the branch is empty. And now let us go to the animal that breaks every speed record, and that for exactly that reason lives on the edge of failure. The cheetah is the fastest land animal on the planet, and the figures still impress. It can go from standing to more than 90 kilometers an hour in about 3 seconds, an acceleration that beats almost any sports car, and reach peaks above 100. But the interesting thing is not the speed. It is that to get it, the cheetah stopped being a normal cat. Almost all cats have fully retractable claws that they keep sheathed like knives to stay sharp. Not the cheetah. Its claws are always out without a sheath, and blunt from constantly scraping the ground. That makes them useless as weapons, but turns them into something far more useful for it: running spikes. They give it grip to accelerate and to turn at full speed without slipping. Its tail is just as important, and almost no one looks at it. It is long, heavy, and flat, and works like a rudder. In mid-sprint, the cheetah throws it to one side to counter the body's turn and change direction without being flung off. Without that tail, at those speeds, it could not follow a zigzagging gazelle. And its spine does something no other big cat manages. It flexes and stretches like a bow with each stride, and that lets it cover more than 7 meters in a single leap, with all 4 paws off the ground for much of the time. Now the price of all that, which is the part almost never told, that ultra-light body, with fine bones and muscles built to explode, is no good for fighting. A cheetah cannot defend its food from absolutely anyone, not from a hyena, not from a group of vultures, not from a single lion. A very high share of its successful hunts ends with another animal eating the prey. and the run destroys it from within. In a top-speed sprint, the cheetah's body temperature spikes, and the effort is so extreme that it needs between 20 and 30 minutes to recover before it can eat. And that is exactly the time its competitors take to arrive. The fastest animal in the world loses its prey while it lies on the ground trying to breathe again. Picture the scene in mid-morning. A gazelle grazes apart from the group. 80 meters off, a yellow patch moves crouched through the grass and stops. Another step, another pause. When the gazelle lifts its head, the cheetah is already 30 meters away and it breaks into a run. What happens next lasts less than 20 seconds. 2 impossible turns, a blow with the front paw, and the gazelle falls. And then begins the part almost no one films. The cheetah lies down beside its prey with its mouth open and its flanks heaving, unable to eat yet. 5 minutes pass, 10, and in the distance, on the line of the horizon, 3 dark points are already trotting toward it. That is why cheetah mothers have one of the hardest jobs on the savannah. They raise the cubs alone with no help, in a place full of lions and hyenas that kill the cubs the moment they find them. Infant mortality in this species is extremely high, and the female has to move the litter to a new hiding place every few days, so no one learns where they are. And on that impossible balance between running, hiding, and losing, the fastest cat that ever existed holds itself up. If you are enjoying this journey through the real savannah, subscribe to Wild Dominion right now and turn on the bell so you do not miss the next documentaries. Tell us in the comments which of these 3 things surprised you most. That the hyena hunts more than it steals, that the lion steals more than it hunts, or that the cheetah loses most of what it catches. We keep going. And remember that at the end, the hunter that wins 8 out of every 10 attempts is waiting for you. Let us go down now to the river, because on the savannah, there is a moment of the year when everything we have seen fades into the background. Every year, more than 1 million wildebeest and several 100,000 zebra travel in a circle across the plains of East Africa, following the rain and the new grass. It is the largest movement of land mammals that exists on the planet today, and at some point along the way, that multitude has to cross a river. There waits the largest reptile, the Nile crocodile. The big specimens top 5 meters and can weigh several hundred kilos, and they have spent months preparing for these few weeks. Because a crocodile can go a long time without eating. Its metabolism is so slow that a single large animal lasts it for weeks. The annual crossing is its pantry for the whole year. Its technique has nothing sophisticated about it, and that is why it works. It floats beside the bank, almost invisible, with only its eyes and nostrils out of the water, and waits for the mud to fill with bodies. When the herd panics and the river becomes a mass of animals shoving each other, it does not need to choose. It just has to be there. And there is a detail on its face that decides everything, and that explains how it hits its target in water where nothing at all can be seen. If you look closely at the jaw of a Nile crocodile, you will see it is dotted with small dark points spread across the skin around the mouth. Each of those points is a pressure receptor, and its sensitivity is extraordinary. Laboratory measurements have shown they respond to pressure differences finer than those a human fingertip detects. What that system does is read the surface of the water. When an animal enters the river, it pushes the water and generates a wave that travels across the surface, and those receptors register the direction and the distance it came from. The crocodile does not need to see the prey or hear it. It feels the exact moment a body touched the water, even in total darkness, even with the river full of mud. That is why when a wildebeest leaps into the crossing, the reptile knows which way to turn before the animal even appears in its field of vision. And from there it is all brute force. It grabs, spins on its own axis to unbalance the prey, and drags it to the bottom. It does not chew, it holds and drowns. Picture the scene on the riverbank. Thousands of wildebeest pile up on the bluff for hours without daring to go down. The water is brown and still. Then one jumps, and behind it they all jump at once. In a few seconds the river stops being water and becomes a mass of bodies, horns and panic. And in the middle of it, without moving from where it has lain for 3 hours, something that looked like a log opens its mouth. And like the rest of this list, it hides a detail that does not fit its reputation. The female Nile crocodile is an extremely attentive mother. She guards the buried nest for almost 3 months without leaving, and when she hears the young calling under the sand, she digs to get them out. Then she carries them to the water inside her mouth, one by one with a care hard to believe from the same animal that just tore an adult wildebeest in two. And above everything we have seen, there is a network that works without anyone noticing, and that finds the bodies before any predator, the vultures. There is something almost no one knows about how the cleaning of the savannah really works. Vultures do not find food by smell or by chance. They find it by watching each other. Each vulture soars at great height, covering an enormous area without beating its wings, riding the columns of warm air that rise off the overheated ground. But it does not only look down, it also looks to the sides, toward the other vultures flying kilometers away. The moment one of them begins to descend in circles, the others see it and drop too, and those are seen by still others farther off who drop behind them. The result is a surveillance network that covers hundreds of square kilometers, and that makes a dead animal get located many times in a matter of minutes. That is why you see 30 vultures appear in a place where, half an hour ago, there was not one. Picture the scene. An empty plain at noon without a single bird. An old wildebeest lies down under an acacia and stops moving. 12 minutes pass, and then one appears, gliding in ever lower circles. 4 minutes later, there are 9. Half an hour later, there are more than 40 vultures on the ground around the body, and none of them was less than 20 kilometers away when the animal died. And their digestive system is an extreme case. The acid in their stomach is so strong it destroys bacteria that would kill almost any other animal, including those responsible for very serious diseases. By consuming the bodies quickly and sterilizing what they eat, vultures cut chains of contagion before they begin, and that makes them the most underrated and most fragile piece of the whole system. African vulture populations have collapsed in recent decades, above all from poisoning. Carcasses treated with poison to kill predators end up killing hundreds of vultures at once, and in some cases they are poisoned on purpose because their circling flight reveals to poachers the position of a dead elephant. When the vultures disappear, the bodies stay on the ground far longer, and the diseases they held back begin to circulate. And now let us go down into the tall grass, where a small cat hunts and does something that seems to belong to another animal. The caracal weighs between 10 and 20 kilos. It has a uniform reddish coat and long pointed ears, tipped with black tufts that look like antennae. And those tufts are not decoration. They help direct sound toward ears it controls independently with more than 20 muscles each, and with which it locates a rodent moving under the grass. But its specialty is something else, and it is spectacular. The caracal hunts birds in mid-flight. It creeps up on a flock at rest, judges the moment, and when the birds take off it leaps, and that vertical jump easily passes 3 meters, with a twist in the air that lets it strike a bird already in motion, sometimes bringing down more than one in the same leap. It is one of the most precise movements you can see in all of Africa, performed by an animal most people would not even know how to name. And a few meters from where the caracal hunts, in the same grass, works a cat that has one of the best hit rates in the whole animal kingdom. The serval is tall, slim and disproportionate. It has the longest legs in relation to the body of any cat in the world, and enormous ears mounted on a small head. Seen from afar, it looks like a cat whose legs have been stretched. Every part of that strange design serves the same purpose. The long legs lift it above the tall grass, which in the wet savannah can rise over the head of a normal cat. And the ears, the largest in proportion in the whole family, work like 2 dishes that locate a rodent moving under the vegetation without ever seeing it. And then it does what defines it. The serval leaps upward, falls vertically with its 2 front paws together onto the exact point where it heard the sound, and strikes. Its jump can pass 3 meters in length and more than a meter in height, all to land on an animal it never saw. The astonishing thing is the result. While a lion hits 1 in 4 or 5 hunts, the serval hits close to half of its attempts, and in some studies even more. It is one of the highest success rates measured in any cat on the planet, and it is achieved by an animal of 15 kilos hunting blind, and above them all flies the raptor I promised at the start. The martial eagle is the largest eagle in Africa, with a wingspan that passes 2 meters and a weight that in the females tops 5 kilos. But what makes it different is not the size. It is what it dares to hunt. The martial eagle brings down animals that weigh considerably more than it does. Successful attacks have been documented on small antelope, hyraxes, monkeys, foxes, and even the cubs of other predators. The ratio between its weight and that of its victims is among the most extreme of all the birds of prey in the world, and it manages it with a very simple technique. It strikes from above with such force that many prey die from the impact before the talons do anything. And its true weapon is height. This eagle patrols, soaring at altitudes from which it is practically invisible from the ground. Its sight is among the sharpest in the animal kingdom, and it can detect the movement of a small animal several kilometers away. For the prey, the attack comes with no warning at all. There is no shadow, no sound, nothing to see until it is already too late. And as happens with almost all the animals on this list that sit at the top, it breeds slowly. A pair raises a single chick every 2 years, and the young one depends on its parents for many months. That is why its populations are falling across much of the continent, above all from conflict with herders and from the loss of the large trees where it nests. And sharing that same grass lives what is probably the most stubborn animal on the continent. The honey badger, also called the ratel, measures a little over half a meter long and weighs between 10 and 15 kilos. With those numbers, it should be prey to almost anything, and yet it faces lions, hyenas, leopards, and venomous snakes, and often wins. Its first weapon is its skin. It is extremely thick, tough, and so loose on the body that when a predator grabs it by the back, the badger can turn inside its own skin and bite whatever is holding it. It is like trying to hold an animal wearing a coat several sizes too big. The second is attitude. The honey badger does not calculate the size of its rival. It attacks, growls, advances, and gives no ground. There are records of honey badgers driving young lions off a kill, and of honey badgers facing packs of hyenas without backing down. The strategy works because for a large predator, a serious wound to the face can mean not being able to hunt for weeks, and none of them wants to risk that over a 10-kilo animal that also fights dirty. And it has a third weapon almost no one knows. It eats venomous snakes. Honey badgers have been documented attacking and eating cobras and vipers and surviving bites that would kill an animal of their size. Their tolerance to the venom of certain snakes is remarkably high, and although a serious bite can leave one unconscious for hours, individuals have been seen getting up afterward and finishing off the snake that bit them. And speaking of snakes, on this same plane lives the one with the worst reputation on the whole continent, the black mamba. And the first thing is to clear up the name, because almost everyone gets it backward. The black mamba is not black. Its skin ranges from olive grey to light brown. The name comes from the inside of the mouth. When it feels threatened, it opens it wide and shows an interior of absolute ink-like black. That open mouth is the last warning it gives before attacking. It is the longest venomous snake in Africa. It can top 3 meters, and there are records of even larger specimens, and it is also one of the fastest in the world. On open ground, it can move at more than 15 kilometers an hour, enough that a person cannot outwalk it. Its venom is neurotoxic and acts fast. Instead of destroying tissue, it blocks the signals between the nerves and the muscles, and the paralysis advances toward the muscles that allow breathing. Without antivenom, a serious bite is one of the most dangerous on the continent. But here is what almost no one tells about this animal, and it matters. The black mamba does not seek a fight. It is extremely nervous, and its first reaction to anything large is to flee toward its refuge, almost always an abandoned termite mound or a gap between rocks. Attacks happen mostly when someone cuts off its path to that refuge, and then the snake does exactly what any cornered animal would do. It raises the front third of its body, opens that black mouth and warns, and sharing its territory is a snake with not a drop of venom that is nonetheless able to kill a whole antelope. The African rock python is the largest snake in Africa. The big specimens top 5 meters and can weigh more than 50 kilos. It is a constrictor, and so far there is no surprise. The surprise is what happens inside it after it eats. When a big python swallows a whole prey, it faces a problem no mammal has. It has just put into its body an amount of food that can approach its own weight, and it has to digest it with an organism that was nearly switched off for weeks. Its solution is so extreme, it is hard to believe. Studies done on large pythons have measured what happens in the days after a meal like that. The animal's metabolic rate spikes to several dozen times its resting level, and its internal organs do not just work harder, they grow. The heart gains muscle mass in a matter of days, the intestine thickens and its inner surface multiplies, the liver and the kidneys increase in size. The snake literally rebuilds part of its body to process what it has just swallowed. And when digestion ends, all of that shrinks again and returns to its previous state, so as not to spend energy maintaining organs it will not use for weeks. It is an animal that switches its own organs on and off as needed. But what makes it special on this plane is where it hunts. The rock python settles beside the waterholes and the paths animals use to come down to drink. On a savanna where water is concentrated in a few points for months, that is the place everyone passes sooner or later. The snake does not look for the prey. It places itself at the one spot the prey has to go, and it waits weeks if it must. And after a big meal, it does not hunt again for a long time. Its metabolism is so slow that a single antelope can keep it for months, digesting slowly, motionless, hidden among the rocks. And now comes the moment to break the biggest belief of all, because the two animals that kill the most people on the African savanna are not predators, and they do not even eat meat. The first is the hippopotamus. An adult male can top 1.5 tons, and that mass hides an unpleasant surprise. On land over a short stretch, a hippo leaves a running person behind with no effort at all. It spends the day in the water, not by pleasure, but by necessity. Its skin cracks under the sun and secretes a reddish fluid that works as a natural sunscreen and antiseptic, something long confused with sweating blood. And here is the detail that breaks the image we all have. The hippo cannot swim. It does not float. It does not paddle. What it does underwater is walk along the bottom, pushing off with its legs in slow leaps, and it surfaces to breathe every few minutes. It can do it even while asleep. Its mouth opens almost 150 degrees, and inside it carries lower canines that grow throughout its life and can top 0.5 meter. Those teeth are not for eating. The hippo feeds on grass it cuts with its lips. They serve only to fight other hippos and to threaten anyone entering its stretch of river. And that is where it becomes the most dangerous large animal in Africa. It is extremely territorial, it gives little warning, and it attacks boats and people that come between it and the water. The figures for human deaths from hippos clearly exceed those from lions, leopards, and crocodiles. The second is the Cape buffalo. It weighs up to about 800 kilos. It lives in herds that can reach hundreds of individuals, and it carries on its head a massive bony structure, the boss, that forms a continuous plate between the two horns. That plate is practically impenetrable and works like a battering ram. Its reputation comes from its behavior. The Cape buffalo does not flee by default. When it feels cornered or wounded, it charges, and there is one peculiarity that made it feared among the hunters of the last century. If it is pursued and manages to hide, it can circle around and wait for its pursuer from behind. That is why they called it the Black Death. And in a herd it does something remarkable. When lions attack a calf, the group does not scatter. The adults turn, form a front and advance together against the cats. There are records of buffalo herds rescuing a calf already held by lions, and of buffalo killing adult lions in those confrontations. Here the prey wins far more often than is told. And the buffalo is not the only herbivore worth looking at twice. The third on this list is the black rhino, and it is worth beginning with its name because it is a mistake from start to finish. The black rhino is not black. It has exactly the same grayish color as the so-called white rhino, and both look the color of the mud they roll in. The real difference between the two species is in the mouth. The white rhino has a wide, flat lip, perfect for mowing grass at ground level. The black one has a pointed, prehensile upper lip, a kind of finger with which it grips branches and tears leaves off bushes. One grazes, the other browses. The name white came from a confusion with a word that meant wide, and the other was called black, simply to tell it apart. That cleared up. Here comes the important part. The black rhino has a reputation as the most aggressive large animal in Africa, and it earned it. It weighs more than 1 ton. It can run at more than 40 kilometers an hour and charges with the horn, leading against practically anything that bothers it. And here is the key to its behavior, which almost no one explains. Its eyesight is terrible. A rhino cannot clearly make out a figure a few dozen meters away. It orients itself by smell and by hearing, and when it detects something it cannot identify, it does not wait to find out what it is. It charges first. That combination of 1.5 tons, poor sight and zero patience made it an animal no predator bothers, and that even the rangers keep their distance from. And its horn, which is what made it famous, is also what almost erased it from the map. It is not bone or ivory. It is made of compact keratin, the same substance as our nails and hair. It has no medicinal property. And yet the demand in distant markets drove poaching to levels that brought the species to the brink of extinction. It is reckoned that the black rhino population fell more than 90% during the last century. Today, a fraction of what there was remains, protected in guarded reserves, and in some places their horn is cut off preventively, without harming them, precisely to take away the reason they are killed. And the next animal on this list has the most underrated defensive weapon in all of Africa, the giraffe. Everyone sees it as a peaceful, clumsy animal, and that impression has cost the lives of many lions. An adult giraffe can top 5 meters in height and weigh more than 1 ton, and its back kick is able to split a lion's skull with a single blow. Lions have been documented dead on the spot from a single kick. That is why prides avoid healthy adult giraffes and concentrate on the calves. And that is why a female with a calf stands over the youngster and strikes everything that comes near. But what makes this animal an incredible machine is on the inside, and it has to do with a problem of physics no other mammal faces. To carry blood up to a brain that is more than 2 meters above the heart, the giraffe needs a blood pressure that nearly doubles that of any other mammal, and an enormous heart with extremely thick muscular walls able to sustain that pressure for its whole life. And here comes the question almost no one asks. If it has that pressure to push the blood up, what happens when it lowers its head to drink? In any other animal, that sudden drop would burst the vessels of the brain. The giraffe has 3 solutions working at once. The veins of the neck carry valves that stop the blood from rushing back down. At the base of the skull, it has a net of fine vessels that cushions the pressure before it reaches the brain, and the skin of the legs is extremely tight and thick, working like a compression stocking that keeps the blood from pooling at the bottom. Without those 3 systems working together, the giraffe would faint every time it drinks. And there is a detail that surprises everyone. That enormous neck has exactly the same number of vertebrae as ours, 7. Only each one measures more than 20 centimeters. Drinking is, in fact, the most dangerous moment of its life. To reach the water, it has to spread its front legs and lower its head to the ground, and from that position, it can neither see well nor get up quickly. It is the one instant when an adult giraffe is vulnerable, and the lions know it. And we close with an animal that looks like a joke of evolution until it gets too close. The ostrich is the largest bird on the planet. It can top 2.5 meters in height and 150 kilos, and it gave up flying a long time ago. But what it gained in exchange is hard to match. It is the fastest 2-legged animal in the world. An ostrich reaches 70 kilometers an hour and can hold a high pace for a long time, with strides that pass 4 meters. No human comes anywhere close to that. And its legs are not only for running. The ostrich has just 2 toes on each foot, unique among all birds. The inner toe is large, wide, and ends in a hard, hoof-like nail. With that foot it delivers a kick forward, not backward like a horse, and the force is enough to open up a predator the size of a lion. It is one of the few defensive weapons on the continent able to kill a big cat with a single movement. And as if the rest were not enough, it has the largest eye of any land animal. Each eyeball measures about 5 centimeters across and weighs more than its own brain. With that sight it detects movement at enormous distances on the open plain, which gives it plenty of time to decide whether to run or to stay and fight. 3 herbivores. One charges without looking, another splits skulls with a kick, and the third guts with a single strike. And none of the 3 eats meat. And this brings us straight to the question in the title of every documentary about Africa. Who really rules the savannah? It is not the lion, An adult African elephant weighs several tons and has no natural predator, no lion, no group of hyenas, nothing. Lions may attack calves or very weakened animals in extreme circumstances, but a healthy adult elephant is simply off the menu of the whole continent, and the elephant is not only untouchable, it is the animal that decides what the savannah looks like. It knocks down trees, and with that it keeps open the grass plains the wildebeest, the zebra, and all who come behind depend on. It digs in the dry riverbeds with its feet and trunk until it finds water, and those wells are then used by dozens of other species. It eats enormous fruits and disperses the seeds kilometers away. Without elephants, much of this plain would turn into closed scrub. The true king of the savannah hunts no one. It simply builds the place where everyone else hunts. And now, at last, we have reached the end of the road, the animal I promised at the start. Because on this same plain, while the lion fights, the hyena runs, and the cheetah recovers lying on the ground, there is a hunter that wins 8 out of every 10 chases it begins. The African wild dog, also called the painted dog. Let us begin with the number because it is hard to believe. The hunting success rate of the wild dog is among the highest measured in any large carnivore in the world. Depending on the study and the region, between 60 and 80% of its attempts end well. Compared with the 25% of a lion, there is no argument. This animal is by far the most efficient predator in Africa. And how does it do it, if it is neither the strongest nor the fastest? With 2 things, endurance and total organization, the wild dog does not chase with top speed. It chases with a sustained trot it can hold for kilometers, and above all it chases without rest and without failures of coordination. The pack divides up. Some individuals cut the curves while others go straight behind, and those that tire drop to the back while others take over. There is never a moment when the prey can catch its breath. Its body is built for that run. It is light, with long, thin legs, and it has only 4 toes on each front foot, without the 5th the other canids have, unique among all the dogs in the world, and its coat, blotched in black, white, and ochre, has a different pattern in each individual, and researchers can recognize each one by its markings, as if it carried an ID. But the most extraordinary thing about this animal is not how it hunts. It is how it decides. Wild dogs vote. This is not a metaphor. Behavior studies in Botswana documented that before setting out to hunt, the pack gathers in a greeting ritual with a lot of movement and contact. And during that ritual, the individuals sneeze, and those sneezes count. The greater the number of sneezes, the more likely the pack is to get up and go. What is more, the weight of each vote is not equal. If the dominant male and female are in favor, few sneezes are needed for the group to set off. If the dominants are not interested, many more are needed to convince the group. It is a system of collective decision with a variable threshold in a wild animal. And there is something more that sets it completely apart from any other large African carnivore. When the pack kills, the pups eat first, not the dominant adults or the young. The adults wait and then regurgitate food to feed the pups, the female who stayed to guard them, and the members of the group who are wounded or too old to run. A crippled wild dog that cannot take part in any hunt can survive for years within a pack because the others feed it. On the savannah we have crossed, where everyone steals from everyone, this is the only species that cares for those who can contribute nothing. Picture the scene at dawn. 2 wild dogs get up and begin to greet each other, running between one another, wagging their tails, touching noses. A sneeze sounds, then another, and 3 more in a row. In a matter of seconds, without any individual giving an order, the 2 set off at once in the same direction, already in formation. No one commanded them. They decided. And yet this animal, the most efficient and the most caring on the continent, is also one of the most threatened large carnivores in Africa. A few thousand remain in the wild. They need enormous territories, they clash with livestock, they die run over, and they are extremely vulnerable to the diseases domestic dogs pass to them. The most successful hunter on the continent is disappearing, while the ones that fail the most are still here. Let us look now at the whole, because after this journey, the savannah does not look like the one that appears in most documentaries. The animal we call a scavenger hunts most of what it eats, lives in a matriarchy and can digest bone. The animal we call king hunts less than it steals, and the male is not there to hunt, but to wage a war he almost always loses sooner or later. The fastest animal on the planet loses its prey lying on the ground trying to cool down. The most discreet hauls 80 kilos up a tree, so it does not have to argue with anyone. The two animals that kill the most people eat grass. The true king hunts no one, and the best hunter of all votes before setting out and lets the pups eat first. None of these things is rare. They are all the norm. What is rare is the simplified version told on top of them, and there is a reason this matters. When we think of the savannah as a pyramid with a king at the point, we protect the king and neglect the rest. And it turns out that what holds this system up are the pieces that get the least attention. The vultures that keep diseases from spreading, the elephants that keep the plain open, the wild dogs that almost no one can name and that are already nearly gone. Go back for a moment to the start. Those 8 hyenas running in the dark and the lions that appeared afterward. That is the exact summary of this place. The one that works and the one that arrives, and a whole plain where the title of king was one we put on from the outside. There are still hyena clans hunting by night in the Serengeti. There are still leopards hauling prey up trees without anyone seeing them. There are still vultures circling 3,000 meters up, watching each other. And there are still packs of wild dogs sneezing at dawn to decide whether to go and hunt. Whether they stay there depends on us no longer looking only at the one that roars the loudest. If this journey through the real savannah surprised you, leave us an enormous like right now and subscribe to Wild Dominion so you do not miss the next documentaries, where we will keep entering the wildest territories on the planet. And tell us in the comments what changed your mind the most, that the hyena is a better hunter than the lion, that the cheetah loses almost everything it catches, or that the best predator in Africa decides its hunts by sneezing. Until the next journey through Wild Dominion.